Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Arthur is back finally, and we are going to take a look today into best practices for JavaScript variables. This is a bonus video for my mini course about variables in JavaScript that you can find in my on my channel already. And if you haven't seen it, go and check it out. It's very exciting, I hope. So yeah, today we're going to take a look into best practices, and I have split this into 3 headlines, as you can see already on my screen. And yeah, let's not wait for it and dive into actions. So the first one I want to talk about you through is case. And what the hell is case? Yeah, let me paste some code that I have prepared for you. So case means basically uppercase, lowercase kind of thing that you might be already aware of, but you didn't know how to use it or like what's the purpose of it. So basically, as you already probably noticed from line 4, we have 3 examples of camel case, Pascal case, and snake case, and most likely you were smart enough to see that the reason for these are to separate words, basically to make a little bit more meaningful names for your variables. So these are 3 major ways of doing that. And why there are 3? Because these are all the options basically. But what is more interesting is that you most likely will see all of them in JavaScript world. So first of all, there is a good practice for Pascal case to be used. To be used for naming classes, which you may not be aware of because you most likely don't know about OOP, but if you do, you know what I'm talking about, and this is good. So majority of the developers will be hopefully using Pascal case for naming their classes, and in other languages apart from JavaScript, this Pascal case is also used for regular variable names. In JavaScript, you will see mostly camel case and snake case, and like dominated case will be camel case, and all the documentation, etc., you will see in camel case. And I suggest to use camel case as well. But I want to warn you, this is all about consistency. So for example, if you join a project that all over the place uses snake case, use snake case. Don't try to push your own idea there, because if you have consistency, that's what matters basically. And if it's readable, that's the big win already, okay? But if it's messy project or it's a brand new project and you are in charge of deciding which case you use, then obviously choose whatever you wish, but I suggest you go with camel case by default. And then the last one but not least is all uppercase. Hopefully I didn't made it up, because I was working with many languages and not just JavaScript, and this is something I know from other languages, but I think I'm also using this with JavaScript as a good practice as well. So for constants that are application configurations on the root level, you use constants with all uppercase letters. So that will tell your other developers or yourself in the future that these variables, constants actually, they are configurational and they are constants in general. So these are usually global or like environment constants for configuring your application. They may contain things like tokens, API URLs, and stuff like that basically. So it's quite handy to name them snake uppercase kinda, I would call it eventually. So yeah, that's it about cases. So let's dive into how to name. So this is very, very important. It's crucial because, as you probably remember, if you've seen my other tutorials about variables, I've been using variables like ABC. And this is very bad practice, but I did it intentionally because that helped me to make it more clear on how to declare and how to use these variables in general. But once we are talking about best practices and the real world scenarios, you would want to create variables which make sense. So for example, if you are creating a book list, you want book list to be named something like this, and even not like this. because this is hard to read, okay? And if you are talking about book list, you don't want to call it BL, for example, to shortcut the name, because even you, in a week period, you will be like, oh, what is BL? And other developers will be basically confused as hell if you will be naming variables like this. So, like full name, for example, maybe it's a one word, but for example, you wouldn't say FN or something, because FN quite often is shortened for function, for example. Or there is a good example with BG. So quite a lot of developers are using BG for background. I mean, for more senior developers and those who are very experienced, it may make sense, okay? But for junior, for mid developers, sometimes it may be like, oh, what is BG? Is it like big gang, big whatever, you know? Or they can come up with some weird, insane stuff in their heads. So don't be lazy and put proper names, okay? Because usually people are very kind of concerned about putting long names, because, oh, it's like I'm adding bytes and to my kind of code, it becomes bigger, etc. It doesn't matter. Your code will be transpiled, and all your variables will eventually be kind of mapped to things like ABC, basically. So all your variables will be like this eventually when your code will go to production to your and will be served to browsers. So don't be lazy and put meaningful, good names which describes what you're about to put in these, okay? And don't use things like how to describe this. So don't over describe your variables. And by this I mean things like, for example, if you have book list, yeah, and this is an array, so don't put something like book list array, okay? This is unnecessary, okay? This is too much. So book list, that's fine, because it's a list, people will already know that this is array. Plus they will have linting and IntelliSense, which will tell people that this is an array, okay? So don't put like too much of a description over there. And the last thing but not least is scope, and in here it should be very quickly, because in general in JavaScript by scope I mean like a privacy and stuff like that. So in more mature languages you have like private, protected, public properties. Some languages may have some other visibility kind of scopes. But in JavaScript, there is nothing like that. There is some stuff in TypeScript, but we are talking about JavaScript here. So in JavaScript, there is a verbal agreement, which some developers are trying to follow. And especially when you will be diving into OOP in JavaScript, you will see something like underscore var name kind of approach. By var name, it's a bad name, but this is just an example, basically. So when you will see variable, property, method, or function starting with underscore, quite often it means private, basically it means it's private, okay? So, and what that means is that, for example, if it's a class, then usually this means that this function or this property is just a helper for this class, and it must not be used outside of the class. So if it's a variable with underscore inside of the file, JavaScript file, which you, for example, import into your file, you must not use this variable in your parent file, okay? So usually underscore means that this is a private method, property, or variable, and I mean only when it's starting with underscore. But you may sometimes face some examples where it doesn't mean anything, so people are using it inappropriately from time to time. So this is just a hint that you need to keep this in mind, and you may use this as a tool for your code as well. But you need to be very conscious and see what it means really, because it's a verbal agreement. There is no proof like to be sure for 100% that this is the case. Okay, So be just aware of that. Cool, that's it about best practices. If you know anything else, please put these suggestions into the comments down below this video. And as usual, like, subscribe, and comment, and I will see you in the next video. Cheers.